This has been my week for being in front of people, I guess. So I'm Mary Barr, the co-chair of Social Justice, and we are sponsoring LoraKim tonight. It's very exciting to me to get to see her again. She, of course, was our minister, and as I remember, all her sermons had a bird in them, which I love. Being a biologist, I just thought that was really great. And she also connected biology and animal biology and bird biology to some of the things that are really important to us here too. So I will never forget some of her sermons. Because of that, I learned a lot. And she, of course, is a bird vet and very much into parrot conservation, always has been as long as I've known her, and we're just thrilled to have her here. So LoraKim, please come up, and whatever else you want to, I didn't ask for a bio, so whatever else you'd like to tell folks about yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, I just want to hug everybody. First thing I want to say is thank you for having me here this weekend, and thank you all for coming tonight. It's been 13 years since we were here. We had 10 years in New York, 2 in Iowa, and now we're in South Carolina. And I just want to say, it allows me to get a retrospective of my life, my second, third, fourth career as a community minister in several other congregations since I was here. Oh, hello there. And you all gave me the start. I was minister here and then community minister when I took the risk to do parrot conservation again. So you all are part of this ministry, and it's got birds in it, and it's got parrots in it. But a lot happened since I was here. I've met a lot of people, and there's been a lot of stories, and I'm hoping that it will motivate you, maybe some tears, maybe some joy, and so you can understand what the people and parrots are going through in the world. And that's my hope for tonight. And I took out a whole bunch of slides, so hopefully we won't be here too long. So, and I don't know, should we lower the lights a little bit to maybe, you all know your screens better than I do. I like that. Does that look a little better? Right. So I really want to tell stories of transformation. Mine, yes, but of the people that I've worked with. And clearly I can't speak for them. So I'm going to tell you how I experienced their stories of what it's like for them to work with parrots. And so there are my 39 years in parrot conservation right there on the screen. And I don't have pictures in there, all the congregation, but you all are in between all of those. And my story with parrot conservation started in Guatemala during the Civil War in the 1980s is when I started doing parrot conservation. And it was a time of Civil War, a lot of unrest. We were one of the first parrot projects in the world at that point, working with assassinations and kidnappings. I mean, the whole bit was going on at that time. And so that was a very transformative time for me through that and to fall in love with the people and parrots in Central America. And so the first story that many of you all have heard is about the yellow-nape Amazon that we worked with there. And it went from maybe about 50,000 as a population, and now there's about 400 of them left in the whole country. And so that story of the yellow-nape Amazon, that is the story of many, many countries in the United States. So I just want to lift up, that was where I began with the stories. But I also want to lift up, I don't have all the stories, there's a book out there, a memoir, where you can get all that, is that the people have really come around. Have you all seen the shift? I know our news is a little sad these days, but there's a greater ecological awareness, I think, than we've had, 30, 40 years ago when I started. So the people in these countries are really trying to save their birds. They're really trying to save their society. And so this is a good story. This has now been labeled as a critically endangered parrot. And so all that work we did, even though we left the country in disgust because there was nothing we were capable of doing to save that parrot, we now have, 40 different organizations trying to save this parrot. So it's good, it's beautiful, and it's tragic, a lot of these stories that we tell. And I want to tell these stories because parrots are in crisis. This is a sanctuary in Rhode Island, good friends of mine. Parrots in this country, people just give them away. They live too long, they squawk, fight, and so our sanctuaries are overflowing with parrots that people can't take care of. It's not that they don't want to, often it's just they can't. And so people who and there's a huge movement now to say birds don't belong in cages, just like we did with chimpanzees, we did with whales. And so because of this crisis, there's a sense that everything has to change. So I've been doing conservation for about 39 years. In between conservation work, we're just a Band-Aid. We're just watching the decline. There are pockets, and I'm going to tell you some really great stories, but in my own life, I'm convinced that we need to do conservation as transformative. Everything we do and say and act has to be transformative. And what does that mean? That our interrelationship grows to change how we relate to one another and other species and the earth, and that the whole society has to change. If the people aren't doing well, neither are the parrots. And if the parrots aren't doing well, you sure can have some socioeconomic problems with the people. It's very interrelated. So how do you do conservation that changes the world? How do you all do congregational work? How do you teach at the university? How do we do this? How are you a therapist and change the world? So I'm going to tell you some stories of people who in their own lives are trying to do very similar things to try to change everything with how they work with parrots. So why do we need transformation? I already told you parrots are in trouble. They're the most endangered group of parrots in the world. Over half of them are critically are endangered and have decreasing population. So we know that. That's why I got into doing the parrot work. Why are they in trouble? We're such a small group, I think people could ask questions or comments. Oh, why do you think they're in trouble? Huge, the pet trade. And we can't forget habitat fragmentation and loss. I mean, they go together. It depends on the country and it depends on the species. So this is one area I work is in parrots. Yeah, but can you see those are eggs and suitcases there? The egg trade in parrots is huge. It wasn't there 40 years ago. People are taking parrot eggs out of the projects I work in, and they tape them, and they go to Asia or India or Arabia or the United States with these eggs. It's a huge market. And so this is like 60 macaw eggs were captured at the Paraguay airport. We've got 100% poaching, which is what we had in Guatemala. You have soy fields, monoculture, intensive industrialized agriculture. So it really makes it hard for a lot of these parrots to survive. And I've told you that a lot of people are really working on this, but the trafficking persists. This report that came out from the United Nations said there are some pockets, but we're basically not having an impact. It's a societal problem, the trade route. It's like trying to stop the drug trade. I mean, how do we, as conservationists, how do we do that? So the need for transformation. We already said that we're losing our populations of parrots. The parrot trade is really hard on parrots. So I want to tell you, individual parrots, I want to tell you the story of Rosa. She's a young scarlet macaw. Let's see. She's the one over there on that side. And she was taken by poachers in Honduras. And the Forest Service is trying to take care of her. Can you see that her foot is turned a little bit? Maybe, can you see that a little bit? I was not in the country when they found her, but here she is, and they're pointing to a swollen leg here. That's, the leg had fractured, and she had to heal on her own because there was no one to take care of her, no veterinarian. She just had to be a baby bird and have to heal that fracture. And when I met her, when she was 9 months old, I found that she not only had a fracture here that had healed, her other leg had been broken, her left wing had been broken, and her right wing had been broken. Why is that? Why did she have so many fractures? Because in some countries, they climb the tree, so they just chop it down. And so when those big trees come down, the chicks either survive or they don't. Get injured, there isn't anyone to take care of them. So that's Rosa. And when I met her when she was 9 months of age, I mean, you could just kind of tell she doesn't look right. Her feathers, she's got a fly in her nose, she's got pneumonia, I thought she was going to die all night long. And I worked, this is with an indigenous village in Honduras. They took it upon themselves to treat her. You know, I had to leave. They said they would treat her. And she survived. Here she is at 2 years of age. She's got her tail. See how bright her feathers are. Interacting with the village. She still cannot fly, and she still cannot walk. She can pull herself along with her beak, is what she can do. So here she is at our rescue center, and you can see how she's perched. She just can't quite amble, but she's an ambassador to all the new birds that come. So even in our disabilities, we can do good in this world. Rosa lived to be 4 years of age, and she died. How long do parrots live? Here's a quiz. How long do parrots live? 75, 80, 90. The oldest parrot documented at 109. So when she died at 4 years of age, it's like pre-adolescent. She was at that age. And this is the story of Rosa, but I could tell you hundreds of more stories just like that. I am getting to get to some good stories, y'all. Just hang in there. So the statistics tell, this was a study in Mexico, that in the trade, you capture them and then you transport them up to where the end consumer buys them, 9 out of 10 die in the first year. So there's a tremendous loss of life. For every parrot you see here in someone's home or in a pet store, think about all those other birds that died to get that bird there. And so there's tremendous loss of life as we go through. And if they happen to survive, they have ongoing harm in captivity. So these are 2 mealy Amazons in Honduras. What do you think about the size of that cage? You guys are all veterinarians now, right? We know. It's in a bar at the university. Do you think those birds ever got to rest with the students partying all night? You know, no water, no food. And what's going on with the feathers? Have any of you all had parrots in your home? It's okay, I'll still love you. I've had a lot. What do parrots do in response to stress? Self-mutilation. They pull out and barbarism. So that's what's happening here. It's common in parrots in stressful situations. So you can see what she looked like. That's what she is now. So the captivity's hard on them. The trade, moving them, is hard on them. In their cages is hard on them. And you can see birds are kept in captivity. This is a little Chin parakeet. You guys had those in Costa Rica, the little chitty guys. So you all can just see that cage right there, right? There's lead there, it's on a boat dock, there's feces piled up. I mean, we can just tell that's low welfare. When the birds evolved to live like that, macaws fly 50 miles a day in search of food. They name their young. They each have their own particular name. The studies showed that they range between the intelligence of a 5-year-old up to even university students on some tests. We put them in cages. It's also a tremendous burden on the people who work in the sanctuaries to deal with all these sick birds that come in through captivity. And as I began the presentation, is that the well-being of parrots is mixed in with in our habitat. But that's, I think, true of any species. You know, our health is all interconnected. But the lack of human security and socioeconomic factors makes it really hard for people to protect their parrots when they have to deal with so much else going on in their lives. And the parrot trade also hurts people. How might it hurt people? I'll often post on Facebook, oh, we had another 10 nests robbed by poachers. And people will write, somebody should go shoot those poachers. They have difficult decisions in their lives. They're making choices. Ethno-ornithology. Everybody values parrots, but they just do it in a different way. And so the people who trap parrots, not all of them, but many of them, have a relationship with birds, and they're risking their lives to climb these trees. So this is in Honduras. The scarlet macaws nest in pine trees, and there's somebody who's climbing a tree. It's against the law in Honduras. The indigenous village told everybody to quit trapping, but this one man continued trapping against the community wishes. And so he climbed this tree because he wanted to take those 2 scarlet macaws and sell them for maybe $50 each in Honduras, where in India they go for $15,000. So you can see who's making the money here. You know, it's the local people. So he grabbed those 2 birds, or he went up to get those 2 birds. The nest is at the very top of that pine tree, up on top, and he puts the 2 birds into his satchel, and he's on his way down, and he made a mistake. And he fell. And he died at the base of the tree. This is in one of our project areas. I was with the village a month later where we stopped to see this tree. One of the parrots died, he died, and that's a marker. And the village is, you can see them there crying. The matron is dancing, they're praying. And because they loved this man, even though he was going against their wishes. So I thought when I saw this scene, how can I hold, well, I do have anger, but how can I not love and see the inherent worth and dignity of all people that are caught in this oppressive extraction system? It's not easy on a lot of days, but that's the transformative piece that we're, It is. Because people have to make difficult choices. Who do they feed? As one religious professor at the University of Florida once told me in an ethics class, he said that our life is full of tragic decisions, and that's why we need one another. I quote that everywhere, Anna. I quote that everywhere. So this is again in Honduras. Who do you feed? And that's why in conservation, it's not so much about the parrots. It's about transforming society. It's about transforming the spiritual growth within yourself to be present to the uncomfortable and the harmful, so you can be present to find a way that we can all transform our communities to take care of parrots like Rosa and to take care of all our communities all over the world. I am being really preachy, aren't I? Well, I just really want you all to hear the story of these people. So that's why I'm kind of laying it on with a definite idea. So the trade hurts people, hurts parrots, it hurts the ecosystems. Why is that? Parrots are the farmers of the forest. They fly with seeds, they poop out seeds, they fertilize, they drop food, so the secondary herbivores eat them underneath the trees. We need parrots. If we don't have parrots, we lose the diversity of the forest. And another piece where people are harmed is they're losing or have lost their cultural and spiritual connection. They grew up with parrots, and then suddenly they're not there. Conservationists are harmed in the trade. This is a friend of mine, Pedro Vitere, in Guatemala. He was on our project area. He went to defend a parrot nest, a yellow-naped parrot nest on his property, and the poachers killed him. He gave his life for the yellow-naped Amazon parrots. And he's not alone. I mean, there's risk out there, especially through Central America. So another story about how conservationists are harmed. Let's go back to Honduras, the indigenous area in La Mosquitia, where the scarlet macaws nest in pine trees. See the eggs and the babies there. It is contested territory. It's one of the last remaining forests in Central America. It's indigenous territory, but that doesn't stop the narco ganaria, they say it, the money laundering that comes through and is taking the forest down, and it takes the parrots. And people are willing to kill each other for this land. And my first trip was actually when I was here as a community minister. It was the year that there was a coup in Honduras in 2010. And the whole village area, they had to flee. This is because Tomas, one of the leaders, turned in the names of the narco people and the people taking the land, turned in the names to the government. In retaliation, they tried to assassinate him down at the river. He was shot 4 times, and he lived. Just talking to him this week. And so on my first trip there, I went to see him. I think I have told you here before. He's showing us where the bullets still are and where the bullets came out. And he's telling me the story down at the river because he was taking a bath there when they shot him. And I said, Tomas, why are you willing to risk your life for parrots? And he said, Doctora, everything is at risk. So I am willing to risk everything. If the parrots don't make it, neither do my people. So I've been with him ever since. Anyone who can tell me that, I'm going to follow them. So he just told us a wisdom that I think we all know. The health of one is the health of all. We're all interconnected. The children, the food supply, the parakeets, the poachers. But Tomas and his people, when we started working with them in 2010, are doing amazing work. That's just a graph to show you that we went from 100% poaching, every nest in 2011 and 2012, in 2013, 2014. Every nest was taken, we documented it. And then they started to receive stipends to do patrols at risk to their life, and they knocked the poaching down to 0% for a couple years, and we had our worst year this year. It was 21% of the nests were poached. Those people get death threats every week, and they sleep under the nest. It's the only reason why there's only 21% poaching, because people all over the world want those birds as pets. But they're doing it. The population of scarlet macaws has exploded in Honduras because of these villages that are doing this work. They're a fierce group. When we first started doing and rescuing parrots and confiscating, they just fed them off of their porch. And these are the very first years of our patrols. And in the last couple of years, they have felt it safe enough to go into the forest, not just the savannah, but the forest. And so we got some grants, and we're able to pay them for the last 3 years to go into the forest and stop the deforestation to protect critically endangered great green macaw. And they have declared it as the first indigenous parrot sanctuary in the world. And it's still at great risk because everybody wants forest. This is in 2023. That's our project truck. That's Santiago Lacut. He directs the project. He and his son were coming home from the main town, which is a 4-hour four-wheel drive from where our project site is. And motorcycles came by and tried to assassinate him. Yeah, so our project all shot up, and they had to go into hiding, but they were unharmed. We don't know if it was because of the illegal timber extraction or the people who were taking the eggs to Asia. We don't know. We don't know who did. So they continue to have this delicate success against great odds. This retreat center is in this small village in Honduras. Rescue center, I mean. And Anaida does not read or write, but she's the co-director of this place, and because of her, she all released maybe 400 birds, and we have protected over 1,000 scarlet macaw nests
Buenos
through this
días.
project.
Soy muy famosa. Está bien, video, está bien. Ok. Hola, Naida. No.
They're feeding the birds. Normally, rescue centers should not be anywhere near people. You'd be wild, not hanging around people. It's dangerous to put that cage further out for the people, and the birds would just get taken. So it's really close to the village, but we put it as far away as we could. And so Anaida, who's the co-director of this rescue center, she's told me stories. She'll go out to feed those birds, and she'll see armed men passing through the forest, and she has to come back because the lack of law in this area. So this soldier accompanied the group of researchers into our parrot sanctuary in the forest, and because we have to go in with soldiers sometimes when things get really hot. You have to swing by the military base and pick up soldiers. And so this parrot on his shoulder was one of our released birds. But the bird didn't want to leave the village, just hung around. And this soldier had never seen this parrot before, and I was able to catch this and to see what was happening, the relationship between these two. It's both of them. It's both of them. So the relationship between parrots and people is very precious. This bird chose to be with this person. Never on my show. And this is the world of parrot conservation. It's full of risk and dichotomy and paradox, of beauty and tragedy and violence and compassion and care. in this intersection of all these things going on in Latin America, amazing things happen. This is in Suriname, so your geography, near Guyana, which is near the now well-known Venezuela. And this is an indigenous group of people. It's legal to trap parrots in Suriname. And this village was one of the main areas where people trap parrots and sell them all over the world. And so we worked with them for 3 years. And they agreed to stop trapping, and we would hire them as rangers to patrol the stretch of river and to stop trapping. And so we mix livelihoods with the parrot conservation. But sometimes things happen that you didn't plan on. I mean, who's in control here? And one person who speaks English in this country, does anybody know what language they speak in Suriname? Dutch. I know. So I can't do him. I can't do that. So she speaks English and Dutch and Sran and Tongo. And she said, I never had work before. And now I'm leading my community and helping my family. Women empowerment, helping families. That was not something that was in our control or that we planned on doing. Pardon me? We paid her to be we paid the villagers. One Earth Conservation. So in Suriname, private donors, just regular foundations. We got a U.S. Embassy grant to help out this village 1 year as well.
The World Wildlife Foundation?
We got a grant to work with them in Paraguay. So yeah, and Wildlife Conservation Society has been one of our biggest partners. And they fund us to do the work. And the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service used to, but not anymore. That's gone. At One Earth Conservation, we have maybe 400 people we're paying in the field every year in all the different projects and countries. So they have a chance to make a choice to save their parrots or to trap them or to not trap them. So I told Unita one day about the harm to parrots in captivity and how people are dehoming them, abandoning them, turning them over to sanctuaries. And she asked me, she said, well, can they still fly? And I said, some of them can. And she told me, well, if they can fly, they should come home to Suriname. And I want to say, they never should have left. It's an extraction colonialist economy. I mean, there's some domestic trade too, but when Europe got involved and the global economy kicked in, extracting these birds to be pets in other areas, and the people losing their culture and their spiritual, and the forest are having a really hard time. And so I don't think they should have ever left the area. Another story of transformation. This is in Guyana, so just north of Suriname, south of Venezuela. This is where a very endangered sun parakeet lives. People come from all over the world to see this bird because there's only about 200. We just in November, and we got 295 birds. There used to be tens of thousands of them in Guyana. Why aren't they there? Because there's now tens of thousands of them in cages all over the world. It's a primary pet species. This group, Makushi indigenous people, said everyone in the village quit trapping. Brazil and the other countries, you guys have to start trapping, and we're going to protect them and patrol them because our parakeets, and we want to develop ecotourism because people all over the world to check the bird off their list. Here you can see these are the sun parakeets, and there we are with their various, and they receive a stipend too. So we've been working with them for about 8 years in the village. And why do you do this work? It's very hilly, it rains, horse and motorcycle, there's no project truck. Why do you do this work? And you can see, there they are in all the various ways. And Ken told me, he said, I need the parakeets, I need freedom. And so the stories that I've learned from these people and the work they do is that none are free until all are free. Did it die?
It's going, so we're change. It's in your glasses. It's in your glasses. Threading the needle.
I'll let you have them. And this is what they taught me, the parrots and the people I work with. But I think we all know that too. So what does all this mean? If we could summarize all these stories and all these experiences, there was a book called The Parrot in the Mirror. And that's a rescued bird we had in Nicaragua that is now flying free. That the author says convergent evolution, which means, parrots aren't us, but we evolved to have very similar traits. Socially monogamous, we move around during the day, we're long-lived, and we're really smart. And matter of fact, humans are more like parrots than they are other mammals. And so the author is saying that if we lose the parrots, they are us. We are the birds. We culturally grew up around them. And this other author in Avian Illumination says, I can't quite read that. It says, a loss of birds means the end of humankind, for they not only tell us how we got to be where we are, but what we might yet become. We just sort of evolved around birds, and he goes through all the cultures, many cultures, to talk about how we are. This is an indigenous person in Honduras, rescued a parakeet. They used to eat them, and he loves his parakeet. So another saying that came out of all this work is no cage is big enough. Any of us. And so to put macaws in a cage is like to put children in a cage. This is an immigration detention center on the border. And another piece, another kind of catchphrase, is the idea of unconditional solidarity. What does that mean? Well, we could read a lot about that, but it basically means you can't help but be in solidarity with all of life. We are connected. We are on the side of life. So what does that look like? How do you live that out? How do you express that? And so another thing that these people have taught us is this strong sense of community. Oh, and I should tell you, they're real jerks, too. I mean, they're just like us. I don't want to paint them and put them on a pedestal. But there are some things that you learn at the nexus of parrot conservation with indigenous cultures. So we have adopted solidaridad incondicional, unconditional solidarity. They love this patch. When I say they, I mean various conservationists in various countries. I have some stickers. On the table in the back, you're welcome to take them. But you have to promise to live in unconditional solidarity, or help me figure out how you live it. I guess that's really the better question.
Por lo menos una.
That was an injured parakeet that this veterinarian at our project in Paraguay just released because the bird got better. You see how happy she looks? So to work for freedom, for life, helps us be free too. Family of macaws in Paraguay, mom and dad and a chick. in the backyard. You see how happy those children are? For they protected that nest. So the idea is freedom for families across the generations with the generations. But it takes commitment and promises. So in the projects we have, I didn't bring any extras. If you talk to me, I'll let you have mine. In all the various languages, it says Fly Free Parrot, and with the colors of their native parrot. So we've given out maybe 8,000 of these in all our different projects. And so, but if you wear it, we tell them it's like marriage. You have to make a promise because you're on the team with 8,000 other people in Latin America trying to save the parrots. So there is much that we can do in conservation. We teach a year-long online course. It's called the Parrot Conservation Core, and it's heavy-duty conservation. You know, it's site management, it's monitoring, it's research, it's education. We're doing all of that, you know, concrete stuff. And you can save birds now, and you can help families do well now. But there's so much more we can do. Because as I've said, we're just a Band-Aid. Cannot change global expansionism and extraction economies to keep the parrots and the people and the forests where they are. So that's why we say we need this sense of transformation. We need to figure out a way, or at least be a witness in joy to what's happening. Find a way to love this world as if your life depended on it, because it does. In Guyana, this is Cater Falls. It's the highest falls in the world. I got to go there one time, and as we came up to the falls, there's a pair of red and green macaws nesting on the side of the cliffs, coming in and out of the mist. I mean, what a pleasure, how easy it is to love the world when we see these things. At another indigenous village in Guyana, I told them the story of the wildlife trade and what happens to their birds and how they may get $25 for a bird and someone is paying $30,000 for them in Hong Kong. And they said, well, how can we resist that? You know, even the $25. And one of the leaders told me, Anna, they come to take what is ours to make it theirs. I had my first parrot when I was 5 years of age. That bird only lived a couple years. I got more parrots. They died at a young age. I got more parrots. And finally one lived to be about 20. So I'm part of the chain. Maybe we all are in each of our own ways. Taking what isn't ours to make it, taking it from someone else to make it ours. So what do we do with that challenge? How can we be transformative in our lives? I don't know, I'll ask. But one thing that encourages me to do the work is to put back what was never ours, what was never mine to take. Those parrots never belonged in a cage in my home. I had a beloved parrot, Exodor, there from Paraguay. And that's why I started to work in Paraguay about 10, 11 years ago, because I wanted to put the parrots back. So on my first trip there, I took all the feathers from all the species we had owned from Paraguay, and we had an altar, and we left them there. And that's why I do the work in Paraguay. One is because I love this parakeet, but it's so to repair reparitations. So how can you all do reparations in your life? It isn't just stopping it, it's putting it back, making it right again, or living with the fact that we can't make it right. So what's next? How do we in our lives go for transformation? one, quit listening to me and go out and listen to the birds. They're the great teachers. Listen to the people. Listen to each other. We have a book that I wrote about how to connect to birds so we can take care of all of us. And this listening to birds we now use in the field wherever we go. This is the first time I tried it. This is in Honduras, and that's a wild scarlet macaw. And I'm the veterinarian, so I get to examine the bird and measure it. And I said, well, why should I get to do it? You know, I'm the gringa from outside of the country. This is the national bird of Honduras. They should be the ones doing it. And this bird was pretty calm. And we had to go in with the soldiers on that one trip. And so I let everybody listen to the heart of the bird. And here's a video of that interaction. People are laughing, people are crying. One man said it was the most transcendental moment of his life to listen to the heart of the national bird of Honduras. It wants to play the video. Who you love in this world or what work you do, you're helping parrots, you're helping people in the earth. There's lots of ways to get at this. And you can also tell the stories you've heard tonight. You can talk about the parrot trade and share the story, what you've heard from some of these people that we work with. I'm also going to invite you to take part of. This is a new campaign we're doing. It's Unconditional Solidarity for Life. We don't have money to pay the patrollers in Honduras. That's the place where we have 150 nests a season, and when they get all the death threats, we don't have funding for this year. So I said, well, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to go down with them for 2 months and camp with them underneath the nest trees. And I'm taking a satellite dish, and we're inviting people to come with us, or at least connect online. We're going to have all kinds of Zoom meetings and bird reports, and you can talk to the indigenous people there. And we're going to make a big fuss, perhaps to embarrass the authorities there that aren't supporting us in the work. So I just want to invite you to check that out and see if you want to be part of the home team, or perhaps be there to be in solidarity with the people and parrots in Honduras. There's an International Alliance for the Protection of Parrots. Its motto is stop the trade, stop the demand, no more birds in cages. It's a 100-year project, but the idea is to say we want to change the cultural expectations, that we don't put people or parrots in cages. So you all have been heroes to listen to this tonight, and the stories of the heroes of people that I work with. Thank you for your time and attention. And on the back table, we also have our annual report. I had a bunch made up, so if you think you want a hard copy, I'm not going to talk too much more about birds, so Yes, I have a whole laboratory surgical kit and medicine that goes in my backpack and my suit. I'm a crappy surgeon. So I try to have, I just don't do enough of it to do that. But we have the anesthesia and all of that, that if we have to repair a bird, we're able to do it.
Have there been any attempts to, well, I'm sure there have been, but to induce some programming that keeps them from somehow or other incentives for being well paid?
Or I can repeat it, but then, oh, no, you asked it.
Well, I'm just wondering what the local there are some places, I know some of the birds in Madagascar and some of the other places, there are programs that somehow or other try to induce so much participation at the local level. They're paid for it, all kinds of things that they're using to try to stop the trade at the source. I know it's extremely difficult. That's one question. My other question is around. I presume they have some dependence and independence and all with other beings besides humans, but they're part of an ecology of other plants and animals besides humans.
So the first question, livelihoods, to pay people so they have a choice to not sell a parrot to get medicine or for their children. So let's do Honduras for an example. We paid 11 villages to be patrollers, and they agreed to not trap. And they take turns, so you're not just hiring one person per community. They take turns. They go, this widow needs to go out, or this young, they take turns. It's the way they do it. And the villages, like I said, they went from 100% poaching, and now we keep it to 20%. They're not poaching the birds. It's the people, countries in Nicaragua that are coming in and taking the birds. We can't pay everybody in Central America to not trap parrots, and I can't get the people in Asia and India to quit paying $20,000 for a bird. So that's why I say everything has to change. We do help people. We save birds. It's great. It's just great. But it's not the long-term solution. We can't hire everybody in the world. But that whole Honduras project, 150 nests of scarlet macaws, that whole project per year cost about what one forest ranger gets paid per year here as a salary. It wouldn't take much money to nip it in the bud. But Honduras, as nearly a failed state, a narco state, lack of law, the rule of law, the indigenous people are a Band-Aid as well. They are absolutely necessary, but without the government's prosecution and protection, they can't stop these outside sources for killing people and coming in and taking the forest down. So you need strong governments to do this, and Honduras is hopeless. But we still work with them. We still do. And they do some things, but they have no money, they have no trucks. I mean, it's not that they're bad people, it's just they don't have the resources to protect their resources. And then we wanted to do the question on parrots. That was a long answer. I can give you some papers on it. They spread seeds, so they plant diverse forests. Macaws fly with seeds that are like this big, so it's really, really important that they're moving around. They defecate a lot because they roost in groups of 300 or 400 in one tree, and then they take one bite out of a saber fruit and they drop it. And so the tapirs and all the ground herbivores get food because the parrots are feeding them. So those are some of the interactions that we have with parrots.
So I have two questions. Can you reintroduce a bird that's been in captivity? And the second question is, why are they so pretty? What's the evolutionary advantage of looking so nice?
So the first question was, oh yes, you can reintroduce birds that have been captive that even been raised with people. Hard. Not every individual will be able to adapt. Some will just be in love with people their whole lives. I knew a bird that grew up was never with other parrots, was in Belize, spoke Spanish and English, got slowly introduced to a group of yellowhead parrots in Belize, started to speak the native language, one day disappeared. 9 months later, we catch her on eggs with a wild mate. So, bam, she just was. And then the other question was, why are they so pretty? I asked that once of a resident at a veterinary school, why do they want to be touched? Why are they mimic? Why are they sociable? Why are they so pretty? Because all of this makes them really desirable as pets. And this veterinary doctor raised her hand and said, God gave us a gift. I did not expect that out of veterinary school. One thing is parrots don't see as we do. They have 4 color cones. We only have 3. So they see ultraviolet light. So we see a scarlet macaw, oh, dude, really pretty. They're seeing something different. So they're really pretty to us, but what's going on with them? I can talk a lot more about the genetics of the color. It's probably fitness for both male and females, you know, the bright color for fitness. You could see a scarlet macaw and hear them, you know, I don't know, a kilometer away. And they also look like the big flowers in the trees, the big tropical flowers. I don't think anyone knows the answer to that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead.
One more question about you. I wonder, do you fear for your security? I've worked in Central America a lot, but not since the 80s and 90s. And sometimes it's pretty darn scary. And how do you do?
I worry more about them because they're the targets. I'm not. They're the ones the bad guys want to get rid of. The indigenous leaders. That's who they want to get rid of. They're going to target those people for assassinations. Other than that, I'm just careful, like anyone who travels. You know, don't show your phone, don't show your wallet. There have been a few times when I go pick up soldiers to go with me because there have been some murders in our area and some heavy level of threat. And what we're doing in March and April, the head narco guy, who's the cousin of the big narco guy in Colombia, he's already said he wants me out of the country. I don't think he'll come after me. I think he'll come after the people I work with. I'm more worried about going off a bridge in a rainstorm than I am people.
So what is climate change doing to the jungles and the habitat for the parrots in Central America?
So climate change, if we had more people studying parrots, we could probably give you that a better answer. The neotropics, so Central and South America, is the most parrot researchers and conservationists in the whole world. There's tons of people doing it now. So some people do know some things. Our nesting season has shifted to a month and a half later since I've been working there. The floods are greater. The flowering is different. More chicks die in some years than others. Is that climate change? Is that normal variation? That's what we don't know, is what is happening. But most people are reporting that the parrots are doing things they haven't ever seen them do before in their breeding cycles. But sure, it's a risk. For them.
When you talk about hiring people to stand guard over the nest trees to protect the parrots, that to me strikes me as almost kind of a short-term solution. The longer-term solution, I guess in my mind, deals with economic development so that there's less incentive to poach and more incentive for ecotourism. So what are the opportunities to kind of shift the local economy from one that supports poaching, one that's more self-sufficient, maybe through ecotourism?
And this hand's been up here. Should I answer that before you ask your question? I know your hand's been up a while. You want to go ahead and ask it at the same time then? Your question?
Yes, my question was, what I watch a lot of these shows on animal shows on PBS, and they try and teach the people that live there are taught that they should encourage people, to come to visit in their areas, and mostly in Africa, I think, and that will help their economy. And would that be the same in Central America?
Right, big tourism in Africa to see the elephants and the megafauna. Well, it's a really complicated answer. Every country's different. Every parrot is different. So there's no one solution. We just need to develop ecotourism, and that will work. In Honduras, in this area, it's not going to work. We've tried, we've gotten grants for it, we built a visitor center, we put up signs, we met with the universities, we work with the hotels, because we're trying to do what you're talking about. The State Department says do not travel to this area of Honduras. So do not travel to this area in Honduras. If you go, the State Department says things like that all the time. You ignore it. But so it's really hard in this area to develop ecotourism. We built an ecotourism visitor center in the forest with that in mind. But who's going to come? So maybe not in that area. In Guyana, we parakeet etcha. People come from all over the world, and that has stopped the poaching as an alternative economic system. We work with partners. We don't work with agriculture, but other NGOs do to increase their yield so they don't have to take down as much forest, the local people, and they can sell their products in the local town. And so there we go. That's what we're talking about. Again, in Honduras, there's no market. It's 4 hours, and they don't have a truck. And the local town's only got 10,000 people in it. So that area is really, really tough. But in many areas, growing alternate crops and selling to tourists and doing ecotourism can help in very specific areas. One thing you guys can do for a big systemic thing, quit taking and using cocaine. Just stop it right now. Let's raise your hand, everybody promise. Because it causes such instability and violence in the area where people are trying to protect parrots. And then they launder the money, they take the forest down, and then they trade parrots while they're at it. We need to get rid of, and the corruption level. That's why it's so hard to get things done in these countries, because the countries are bought out with narcos. So if we just reduce the demand for cocaine, come on guys, we can do it. It's the demand that's driving the instability in a lot of these countries.
Yeah, kind of on that line, are there efforts in Asia and other places to reduce the demand for parrots?
So the International Alliance for the Protection of Parrots, the idea is to offer resources and networking for people in their cultures, their own people, to try to stop the demand. Right. China is a huge market for parrots right now. Lots of disposable income, lots of urban people wanting parrots in their homes. It's one of the, no one's the bad guy. U.S. certainly did it too for decades. But that's a huge demand. And so that's a hard nut to crack, because there's a group of Taiwanese where maybe they've arrested and put in jail 20 of them in the last 2 years, and the ring continues bringing eggs out of Central America because the demand is so high. But we're working on it. The parrots will go away before we fix it, but might be some remnant populations that we can protect, so when the trade stops. You want to answer that?
There's lots of international prohibition for ivory, for parrots, for reptiles, for turtles.
But it's what? Right. So There's a group called CITES. Have you guys heard of CITES? They're business people that try to limit the number of parrots or elephants or whatever to leave a country. It's legal trade, but they say, come on, don't take so many, you're wiping out your bird. It's legal trade. The problem is with parrots, the illegal trade mixes with the legal trade. So it's a cover. So, yes. Yeah, in Suriname and Guyana, it's completely, and then they're laundering birds from all over South America, not all over, but local South America and the Upper Cone, because they're just lying and forging papers going everywhere. So within countries, it's okay to buy and sell parrots. So in the United States, it's legal to buy and sell parrots. So they sneak them over the Mexican border and sell them. And it's hard to prove where they come from. But if we could change, like Save the Whale, Willie, if we could do that kind of propaganda messaging, that's what this organization is trying to do. Free the budgie. Yeah, Rosa, yeah. Free Rosa, yeah. If you guys know any documentary people or messaging people, send them our way.
Two questions. One is it true that the Puerto Rican parrot is extinct? If so, could you comment?
Should I answer that before I forget the question? The Puerto Rican parrot was down to 13 individuals in the 1970s. I worked on that project in the 90s. A lot of people did. There are now over 7, what's that? And I'm not sure I understand that. Both sexes? Oh, I understand. They weren't all females and males. There's now over 700 Puerto Rican parrots. Oh my goodness, I'm taking you home with me. You know your parrots. They're very similar. It's the same genus. There's just one island over. And we practiced with the Hispaniolan parrot to release them into the wild so we could learn that and do it with the Puerto Rican parrot. Over 700, even though the hurricane, what years were those hurricanes that took out half of the Puerto Rican parrots that they had released? They're coming back again. That project is millions of dollars a year to bring those parrots back.
How about those parrots on the loose in California? In my hometown, there was, around sunset, there was this flash of green, and it was not the sun sinking. It was a whole flock of parrots, and were they noisy?
Did you like seeing them?
Well, I was thrilled, but I was driving, and it was a little dangerous.
There are stabilized populations of parrots breeding and reproducing in 23 states in this country. Yeah, in 23 different states, they're breeding and stable. There are parrots all over the place, and it's not just in this country, it's all over the world. The birds, you know, have been pets and been released, and in some areas they consider them, they use the word pest, and they do slaughtering to reduce their levels in certain areas. So we have different species here. I don't know. Where's our bird watchers? How many parrot species of parrots are here in Florida? 12, 13, 14? Yeah, Miami. Yeah. We had parrots up in White Plains when we lived up there. They were breeding and stabilized. Thank you all for hearing those stories.